Hello, horror fans. It's me, Cass,
Kylee.
and we are the Horror Podcast. And today we have a very special episode planned for you. So we have on Addison Heimann, who is the director of Touch Me. It is an incredible new film that really just talks about some deep subjects with some of the coolest horror imagery in a really long time. So,
Yes.
but Addison, how are you?
I'm just peachy. I just flew in from LA to New York and it's cold here. I don't like that. But it's fine. We're living our lives.
Yeah. We live in Ohio, so
Oh yeah.
yeah.
So yeah. But soon
Yeah.
it'll be pretty, right? Soon it'll
Yeah,
be
soon,
the beautiful spring.
we just had the fall, spring, and then the second
Oh,
winter,
yeah.
and now
We've
I think
had
we're getting in.
we've had winter, we've had fall, and today was like spring.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I lived in Chicago for 9 years, and that was that same thing. And it was funny what I justified. It was like the first day it was in the 50s, and I was like, I can wear a tank top and shorts. This is right. And then in LA, you see people in North Faces and UGG boots at 55 degrees. You're like, oh man.
Yeah, nothing like the winter out here. It is a whole different level. So,
Yeah.
but this film is absolutely incredible. Like we said, we're
Oh,
definitely going to go ahead and get into it.
yeah.
We do want to highlight though, and we will discuss that at the end of it. This is Addison's second film. Addison's first film is Hypochondriac, and that is available right now on VOD. So if you are interested in watching that, please go do it because it's got some great themes to it as well. But without further ado, we'll go ahead and get the music started. So let's hit it.
Welcome to the Horrorcraft Podcast.
We are back, and we are with Addison Heimann, the director of Touch Me, and we're going to talk about Touch Me. But first, we're going to get into some icebreakers because we kind of need to know where you're at in horror.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be a Horrorcraft episode without some fun icebreakers.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
it wouldn't. So I don't want to get sued, or I can't do the good Ghostface voice.
Sure.
So I'm going to ask, what is your favorite scary movie? And this could be all time or a recent favorite.
Yeah. Oh my God. I mean, honestly, the one that I always say is the Blair Witch Project, which I just it's such a, it is one of those things. And I'm in my mid-30s. So I just missed the boat of is it real or is it not? I watched it later. I was in my early 20s, and I'll never be able to get the end of the movie out of my head. It's the scariest thing I've ever seen. Somebody just standing against a fucking wall. And I'm just like, oh God. And that just to me is just it's so simple. The irony is I make really crazy movies, but that to me is so simple. And I just love I love horror for that reason. It's just that image. And it's if you saw it independently of what it is, you wouldn't be like, wow, that's not scary. But because of the buildup that this movie has had, that exactly the shit's about to go down. And that to me is mwah.
Absolutely.
Especially because you don't ever even see the Blair Witch.
No, you never see the witch.
Just left. You never see the witch. Now, in the 2016, remake, reboot, sequel type thing, you do see it. And while I like that one, I like the first one a lot better just because they just took it. I don't know. I love found footage. Just my favorite, subgenre of horror. But it was just a little bit too much in the end and the house and the rain. And then you do see the Blair Witch, and she was terrifying, but I like the quiet, simple, subtle of the Blair Witch Project. Like you don't know what it is.
Yeah, I mean that there's something that's so terrifying about found footage. Like I remember there was a time where I was like, maybe I'll write a found footage, and I was like, this is too much work. But like stuff like Butterfly Kisses, like it's just I don't know
That's
if
a
you've
good
ever seen that.
one.
It's so
Yeah.
good. Like that kind of like that kind of creepy pasta-esque like lore
Yeah.
stuff like scares the shit out of me because like that, and it's like not something I've like super like delved into, but I love the idea of just like a thing that starts somewhere that expands upon, and like the internet is such a cool like place for that to like kind of expand as people kind of expand on the lore, and I always find that so cool.
Absolutely. I'm super excited for Backrooms. That was kind of like a
Yeah,
creepy pasta.
absolutely. Yeah,
I'm super
yeah.
excited for that one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, most definitely I am too. So, um,
What is your favorite horror villain of all time?
Oh, wow. Okay, that's a hard question to answer, right? Because it's just like, well, what are we talking about here? Because it's like a supernatural presence type situation. Then that's like, like that's one side of the world, and then the other side of it is just like straight up, like Scream, like the original Scream. Because that's my other one. That's what I say. I say the Blair Witch Project, and I say Scream. So it's like with Billy Loomis and oh my god, now I'm a bad Scream person, but like literally like that, like those two.
Stumacher.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, the like the two like maybe gay, maybe not,
Yeah.
but I think they are lovers. Like that to me are the most delicious. That's like the most delicious like villainous type situation that I could think of. That just makes me so happy. And that being said, like also villain, like go just make it classic. Go to The Exorcist. Just go straight up Satan, and that little
Yep.
girl. Like it's just amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially because like you don't I think the thing that makes The Exorcist so terrifying is you don't expect it from the little girl.
Right.
You
Or yeah.
go ahead.
Go on. No, you go
Uh,
ahead. You were making a point, and I was just going to jump right on it. So I would love for you to continue.
Thank you. Well, I was saying you kind of expect like maybe when the movie first starts, because I saw
Yeah.
this recently, like
Yeah.
about a year ago in
Yeah.
theaters with a
Oh,
group of
cool.
friends,
Yeah.
and it's been a time since I've seen it. And
Mhm.
first, you think the mom might be the one that's like having
Mm.
issues because you could see
Mhm.
like she's an actress, she's stressed, and you're like, oh yeah, she's prime bait for Satan. And
Yeah.
then it turns out to be the little girl. You're like, when did she have time to be inhabited by the demon? Like,
And also my favorite like kind of horror trope is the creepy kid. Like, but like the kid, when that child actor is an amazing actor, you're like, this movie is going to be the best thing I've ever seen. It's like that to me, like when a kid can pull that off, and it's hard, right? Because they're like, what are they, like 12? Sometimes they're younger. And when they can do that, it's just astounding. And so it makes for some of the best horror.
it's crazy. Kylie and I have a very controversial pick. And mind you, we're both mothers, but
Yeah.
we both believe that like children can get it. Like everybody in life bites the dust. So why can't kids in horror movies die too? I mean, I'm not saying that it has to be anything like crazy, but I always think that there's like an extra added level when everyone is there's that limit where you're like, oh yeah, everyone's going now.
Yeah, well, you
Like,
can't. Well, that was oh God. Now I'm not remembering the name of the movie because it's so good, but it's a Spanish language film about like this kind of like I don't know if it's the devil taking them over, but like something is kind of spreading throughout a town, and like this man comes in, and then the dog like rips the kid, like bites into the kid's neck and like
oh
rips him.
yeah,
You know what
I
I'm
know what
talking
you're
about?
I know
God,
what you're talking
I
about,
hate
but
this. I have
it's
to Google because I'm gonna have to know it. Like this is the
I at
situation.
first when you were talking about it, I thought you were talking about the orphanage because a lot of people don't like the orphanage because it's like kid spirits and it's early Guillermo del Toro, so it's like a
Yeah.
lot of like atmosphere. But yeah,
It's
I know
so mean
exactly.
though. God, like I just like literally you're talking about the one during the Spanish Civil War? Not the orphanage. No, not the orphanage. I'm thinking of The Devil's Backbone.
Yeah.
The Devil's Backbone. That's right.
Yeah,
This
The
is the
Devil's
thing.
Backbone.
I'm on no sleep right now, and I am knowledgeable about horror, and I'm literally
we know you're knowledgeable.
Every single movie is just literally floating through my head, and I'm gonna be like, what movie? That movie. I couldn't even remember. Like, but whatever. We're doing great. But yeah, it is just like, there's the orphan. Listen, creepy kids are incredible, and like honestly, like sometimes kids gotta die in a movie to make things real. I'm not saying we like, because here's the thing, there's a difference between you're just like, oh, we're killing a kid just to be exploitative. But my favorite parts, because here's the thing, everybody's like, oh no, another horror movie about trauma. And I'm like, every horror movie is about trauma. You just haven't noticed it. But it's like that to me it's just like when it's really intertwined in the story and it's trying to say something about certain things. Like that's the best thing about horror in general, is like you can be so entertaining, but you can get into these like really complex and difficult issues through the side by also making things scary, funny, whatever the genre of horror, because there's so many subgenres now. But it's just like, if you're able to tell like kind of this like metaphoric story about whatever you want, mental illness, trauma, death, grief, like it is just so gratifying.
Yeah. Oh, I feel like horror.
Well, and I mean, it's just like traumatic things happen to kids every day.
Mhm.
Like, so it's just like, I don't think, and we should be painting a picture that these things like don't happen. I mean, yeah, are there like, for instance, like the 2018 like Halloween, Michael Myers like killed a kid. That was the first time like really like in the franchise that like Michael Myers had killed a kid. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there's not Michael Myers, walking around in real life really, but there are, people that take kids' lives. Like it happens. It's unfortunate, but it's real. It's what happens.
And that's what I love horror. It doesn't shy away from these things. In fact, it goes forward towards it, and that to me, is so amazing. I just think of like, I mean, just think more recently, like Weapons. It's like the sea of creepy like maybe I'm a very stupid audience member. So when like they found the kids in the basement, I literally gasped and the woman starts cracking up. And of course you think back, you're like, of course it's what you're heading towards. But I was just like not paying attention because I was like totally engrossed in the movie. And then all of a sudden there's all those creepy kids. And there you go.
Yeah, I just feel like, a good example of it is The Stepfather, and that at that time was an unsolved crime. Like that man actually, that was based on a man who actually methodically went through and killed his whole family. And it was a horrific act. And it was kind of, the director kind of thought, okay, well, what would happen after? And it's like, what is that behavior? And kind of deeply looking at it. And now we know that like that's a family annihilator, and we know these things through true crime and stuff like that. But these things happen. We see these things all the time.
Yeah.
And so it's just a truer portrayal of life. And horror is where you can basically, good, bad, ugly, anything in between, you can just paint it on the canvas and leave it the way it is and leave it for people to interpret it.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
that being said, what is an underrated horror gem in your opinion that you would recommend to someone?
Oh God. That is, oh man. It's like now you have like want me to be like going into my letterbox to no longer exists because I deactivated it. Only because I was so terrified that I'm like, if somebody finds me, I don't give ratings or anything, but I'm just like, I don't want anybody to know. But like, geez, there's so many that I would think of. Oh man, because I don't even know, because if you're a true horror person, you probably know all these movies. But basically, like if you're kind of somebody who's kind of lived in the kind of like English language a genre space, I would behoove you to look elsewhere, because because it's so fascinating and honestly very uh you learn a lot. That's again, see, I think things just going right on my head. To learn about what another culture finds terrifying is like super cool. I think of like something called like something like Thelma, like, which is like, it's joking, true, you just won an Oscar, but like it is just like that to me is just like so unbelievable. Oh wait, I do have one. Rift. it's an Icelandic, I believe it's Icelandic, or Scandinavian horror about a guy whose like ex-boyfriend basically is like, something's wrong, you need to come up to the house, and then it's like kind of a mystery unravels from there. I could name so many. If you want to go back to like the 60s, you could watch like Onibaba or Kuroneko, which are Japanese horror films, more like, like thriller horror, I could keep going. Just tell me to stop because I will just keep talking.
I think those are great. And I do think the same thing, because we do see that where like these films are just incredible. And then later on they gain steam. Like I remember watching Rare Exports for the first time.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I'm like, how did like, this is my bread and butter. How did this not even land on my like sphere of knowing? Because it's like a fairy tale. It's like the other version of Krampus, and it's everything I want. And why haven't I known about it? But you get so much deeper, and you see that with like a lot of the Japanese and Korean horror that we've gotten, like when The Wailing came out.
Oh
And
my God, The Wailing is truly one of the best horror movies I've ever seen in my life. Like I'm so terrified by that. And like, like obviously during like the whole ritual where like the kid is like, is like freaking out. Again, good child actor. That movie, that like, and it's just like,
or the original Speak No Evil. And how like, even though I think they like James McAvoy do a good job with like the way that they like, but like the original, like when you realize that that's going to be the ending, you're like, what
you're
the fudge? Like,
very
like,
dour. Yeah, of course that's the way the Europeans do it. It's just like, we're gonna go darker than you, and you're like, okay,
and I appreciate it. I really do.
Yeah.
So
I like the one with James McAvoy, but I definitely liked the Danish one a lot better, just because I liked the ending better. Like it was not, a happy, you know what I mean? It was just more bleak, and I liked it a lot better.
Yeah. Just different,
What?
it's like one's for an American audience, one is for
Exactly.
one for exactly, but you were gonna ask a question.
What is one horror trope you love and one you would like to subvert and just toss out?
Ooh, horror trope that I love. Oh man. Okay, now I have to think. I have to think about that for a second. But I can tell you about the horror trope that I think should go away, and then I'll as I'm talking about it.
okay.
There is a portion of a movie when there's something supernatural, and everybody goes, "I don't believe you," and then we have to follow until everybody kind of gets on board that the supernatural exists. Which is like, listen, we get it, we've done it. And like, it's fine if you do it again, but I would love to subvert that. I think actually one of my favorite versions of it is in the remake of Invisible Man, because like, Elizabeth Moss like is like, there's a real, and everybody's like, fuck off, bye, and they all disappear, and then she's alone in the house and has to deal with the Invisible Man. And by the time she's on the other side of it, then like boom comes the knife, and then like, so it's just like we get through it so quickly because it's so much more enjoyable when everybody's on board, or like, and at the very least, the subversion would be like, it's real, but you're trying to hide it. And it's like more, I think more of an interesting kind of way to go about it, because then you're just like, it's funny, like Pot Meat Kettle, because my first movie is all about what's real and what's not real. But like, it is like an interesting thing, because I love the idea of people just immediately accepting that there's something going on and that they need to solve it. Because that's how you get to the like elevation of it all. You kind of want to just get to that point. It's kind of a similar kind of thing to like, the original hero's journey, where it's like there's that point where the hero has to be like, no, I'm not gonna do it. And you're like, but girl, we know you're gonna do it. So just like do it. Yeah.
Funny.
I will say, one horror trope that I do love. Now it came to me. It's the opening scene of a horror movie where something violent happens and then you jump 6 months later. It's like some of my favorite stuff. So like The Descent, where they're like driving along and they get
Yes.
into that freak accident where her husband dies. Or in The Ritual, where like they're all friends and they're like they want to go camping, and then his friend dies in the convenience store, and then they all go on the camping trip anyway. Like that to me, I think is incredible because it immediately sets you in the horror zone. You're immediately tucked in it. Or like, you know, the new Final Destination with the whole like kid and the
Yes.
shitty penny.
Yes.
It's like once you have that at the beginning, you're primed and can deal with some exposition because you got that taste, you got that horror taste in your mouth. And it's like the it's like I always talk about how like horror films are like roller coasters, where it's like, you know you're safe because you're strapped in, but there is this fear that's like pouring out. So it's almost like those scenes are like, you know, the in those roller coasters that like shoot you up, and then you're at that very top, and then you go back down and do the roller coaster backwards. And I love that. I love that trope. And I want to see any movie that has that. I'm like, I'm in. I'm locked in. Let's go.
I feel like we
I
need to
love
see
that.
something like more of that, because I know like I think Netflix was saying this because they were talking to Matt Damon and Ben Affleck about like
Oh yeah.
making a movie that like kind of gets people sucked in quick, because a lot of people are on their phones like not watching the movie. And they've talked
Yeah.
about like making movies that are not very like in depth, that you can just like listen to and not be paying attention, so you can just be like on your phone. But I think when you have openings like that in a horror movie, and like so you're immediately like locked and loaded and seated, and you're watching this movie because you have such a grand opening scene that sucks you in.
Yeah.
Yeah, a prime example of that, and it's coming out next month, but we got to watch The Yeti, and that's coming out next
Oh,
month.
cool.
And The Yeti, I was watching it. So my son, obviously, he has health issues, and we were taking a medical trip. So I was watching it like late at night. And so I'm in like a communal space at a Ronald McDonald house, like on
Yeah.
a couch, just in a corner by myself. And I had my headphones on, and she had not watched it yet. And I remember I'm thinking, "Oh, okay, this is how they're starting the movie." And then all of a sudden, like, something happened. I was like, "Holy fucking shit,
Yeah.
man." I'm like,
Oh.
we are 6 minutes in, and
Yeah.
this is happening. I am
Yeah.
afraid for every single person in this movie, because
Yeah.
now, like, you're telling me that that's, like, the opening, you
Yeah.
know, scene,
Yeah.
then nobody's safe. But I do think we
Right.
need more like expectation of like, okay, you think you're safe, but all of a sudden, psh, nope, floor is gone.
Well, and that's the beautiful thing, right? Is it because it immediately creates this sense of danger, this sense of stakes, right?
Yeah.
So it's like that's all it is, right? So it's like even in slow burns, and I'm not gonna like I love slow burns. I've made
Mhm.
slow burns, but it is that thing where it's like the sustainability of that slow burn is predicated off of a moment of danger, or like a secret. Right? It's like they're like,
Mhm.
it's like what's behind the door, like what's behind the thing, and you're always kind of like hinting at the door, but then you go through the door, and so but you're kind of aware of it if you see it at the beginning. So yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I love that. So we are going, thank you for doing our icebreakers. We're going to
Oh
talk
my god, I
about
love that.
Touch
I
Me.
love talking horror.
Yeah, it was so much fun. I feel like we could have a whole episode of us
Oh
just
yeah,
talking horror, because
yeah.
I feel like you're an
Absolutely.
encyclopedia. But
He like his knowledge is reminding me of your knowledge, and I'm seeing
yep.
sparks fly.
You
Yeah.
know what you have to do? You just have to have a mental breakdown where you're literally on the couch and you've injured your arms, so you can't move for 6 months, and so you just watch 500 horror movies because you have no other choice.
Exactly.
And then you come
Yeah,
out the other end
exactly.
and you're like, I'm gonna be a filmmaker. You know.
I listen, I love that journey. In high school, I was not popular, and so
Yeah.
I was the kid that carried around a vampire encyclopedia. Little did I know.
Ooh.
And I had like the sticky notes on there, like, "Ooh, I found
Yeah.
this crazy vampire movie. I'm gonna,"
Yeah.
and I didn't know that later on in life, much later on, it would pay off and I would have horror street cred. So,
Yeah.
you know,
You do.
Yeah.
little
Yeah.
Cass,
do.
you made it through the trauma. You got
Yeah. Yeah.
cred.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but Touch Me is an incredible movie that you have coming out. And
Yep.
it's about two friends who kind of go through some really horrific, just accidents of different things that then lead them to making a judgment call of staying at one of their exes, like vacation homes, and
Yeah.
it ends up just turning into a really wild, interesting journey that you just never know what's coming up next.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of leaving it very vague because I
Right.
want
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
guys to
Yeah.
go out and watch this because
Yeah.
it is incredible. We will definitely link the trailer in the description of this episode down below.
Yeah.
But so Touch Me, I know from reading the production notes, it is a deeply personal story, like your first film,
Yeah.
Hypochondriac, that you did in the
Yeah.
space. Can you
Yeah.
tell me what inspired you to make Touch Me?
Yeah, so it was kind of like, so if I, like Touch Me is like a tonal clusterfuck of everything, right? So it's like let's compound all the things that were happening to me at the same time, right? Was depressed. I was going through a pretty terrible friendship breakup. My obsessive compulsive disorder was flaring left and right. And I happened to come upon a wonderful movie called The Untamed, which is a Spanish language film about an alien in a shack, tentacle alien that fucks people in the town and makes them feel euphoric. And it's a drama. And I was like, how did you make a fucking tentacle sex movie a drama? Yes. Like, please, 18 more of these. And it's queer. Like, everything about it. I'm just like, give me more. And so, love right in the middle of a devastating friendship breakup, having a sweet little mentee be like, I'd been the one thing I was doing, because for some reason it was a thing I had to do every day, no matter how depressed or how anxious I got, I had to learn Japanese. I had to do it every day. I did it every day. I did it on Duolingo. I eventually, I had I now have a tutor, all this kind of stuff, but I've been learning Japanese for like 6 fucking years. And that led me to watching a bunch of like Japanese cinema, like from like the early black and white noir into like the transition to kind of horror into the Japanese exploitation films of the 60s and 70s, into the kind of like, uh maybe you could call it like prestige dramas into like Japanese horror and thriller of the 90s and the early 2000s, all the way to now of like modern Hirokazu Koreeda, which is like, the smallest, most touching like dramas you can think of. But I ate it all up mainly, and also anime, because I love anime. Satoshi Kon, and Studio Ghibli and like fuck everything. So, I'd been learning all this stuff while I'd been depressed. And so I was like, well, what if we take a little column A, a little column B, a little column C, a little column D, and like put it all together and basically tell the story of my friendship breakup, my devastating friendship breakup, that like is kind of exploring what it's like to live with obsessive compulsive disorder through these mismatched of tones, all about two friends who are so fucking sad that they would rather sleep with an alien and feel euphoric than deal with their problems that they have with each other and with the world. And that kind of together, that is the movie.
I love it. I just think
Yeah.
it's such a great.
I
I
did,
mean,
yeah.
it is so good because it just takes such deep things that we need to see represented in horror
Yeah.
and does it in such a fun yet comedic way at certain points in times. Like,
Yeah.
I will say the scene with the shower reminded me of a shenanigan that Kylee and I would be into. Like, something would
Yeah.
happen and we both would be like, well, what are we going to do? What are we going to do?
Yeah.
Like,
that happened in real life. So like, art imitating
oh my
life,
God.
imitating art. Yeah. My entire underbelly of my house filled with sewage water. And I was like, something's going on here. I took a plunger to the shower. All of a sudden, out comes a bubbling of the diarrhea. Yeah.
Oh, that's horrible. That's horrible.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
That is
can't.
so horrible.
I know.
So horrible.
Yeah. Some of the worst smells I've ever smelled in my life, It's just like, oof.
Did you put the cream on your nose and the tissue up your nose to block the
Oh,
smell?
yes, I did. I did. Oh, I certainly did. Because it smelled like sewage until I got my friends, I was about to say zoologist, but what I really mean is plumber, to come in and actually
I
rescue
feel like we need
my
to market
house.
that though now.
Yeah, yeah.
I think I
Yeah.
like that better.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it really happened. But yeah, so that's essentially what it was, right? So it's like I've told this story a lot. I feel like it's my like Lady Gaga's. There could be 100 people in the room, but like it's basically like obsessive compulsive disorder works like this. You think a thought's going to happen. You're convinced a thought, whether it's an extremely intrusive thought, like you're going to kill a child, you're going to jump off a roof if you get too close. Every time you cross the bridge will collapse. To smaller things like, I think my boyfriend's going to break up with me. But like you always kind of end in the same place, or at least me personally, because I am not a therapist. I'm just talking about my own experience. But basically, it's like you start with, oh, I think my boyfriend's going to break up with me, and he's going to do it. And then all his friends are going to abandon me. And then all my friends are going to abandon me because they really were just hanging out with me because my boyfriend is the great one. So he's going to go away, and then I'm going to lose my house because I'm not going to be able to afford the mortgage. And then I'm going to have to sell the house, but I have to sell it for under market. And then my money is going to get stolen because for some reason carrying around in my bag, and I'm going to get mugged on the street, and everybody's going to hate me, and I'm going to die alone. Eventually, you just always get to the same place, or I do personally, which is my kind of thing. So the way you counteract it is through this thing called exposure and response prevention therapy, where you expose yourself to your deepest, darkest fears without engaging in what you think will calm you down, whether that is a tick you do, like, checking that the stove is turned off 10 times to make sure the house doesn't burn down. For me, it was like, double check to see people are still following me on Instagram so I know that they don't hate me, stuff like that, right? So if I think my boyfriend is going to break up with me, what I'm going to do as an exposure, which is exactly kind of mirrors what the first monologue is in that first 8 minutes, is fantasticalize, I think that's a word, but like fantasticalize a scenario and kind of put that on top of the thing that you're most afraid of. So boyfriend is going to break up with me, but also while he's breaking up with me, there's a unicorn orgy in the background, and every time a unicorn comes, like my boyfriend tells me another terrible thing about myself. And so when I go back to that fear, because inevitably those thoughts always come back, I think about a unicorn coming instead of my boyfriend hating me, or I kind of conflate the two, and it kind of deadens the nerve or makes you laugh, and it kind of lessens the weight of it coming back again. And that's kind of feel like what Touch Me is in a nutshell. It's like you can be talking about the deepest, darkest like tragedy in the moment, and then all of a sudden you're like dancing to hip hop, and then like you're like stabbing somebody with sugar-free lemonade powder, and then you're samurai swording, you're decapitating someone, or like a head's exploding, or like all of these things are happening in the underbelly of entertainment, but in the reality you're dealing with something really sinister and dark and deep. And that's kind of what I feel like it's like to live with obsessive compulsive disorder. And that's kind of what I was trying to do in terms of like a wild tonal switches, like as the story progressed.
I love that. I think that that's a
I love that. My oldest son, he has autism and is nonverbal. He
Yeah.
also has OCD. It's not the psychiatrist could not definitively diagnose him with that because
Right.
he's not able to answer the diagnostic questions for that, which
Right.
is
Yeah.
like
That's the thing, right?
he
They give you
can't.
that thing, it's 1 of 4. If you can't do that, yeah, he can't. Yeah.
Yeah,
Ugh.
but he definitely has like the OCD like tendencies that are outside of the autism norm because they
Yeah.
coincide. But his stuff is a lot more like he likes things tied together. He likes chords being connecting.
Yeah.
Right now, he likes people to sit certain ways. Like, you
Yeah.
can't have your legs crossed, or, like, you gotta be laying on the ground, or, like, certain movies have to be on, or, like, he has to have this large amount of ketchup on his plate for french fries.
Yeah.
And trying to navigate that, like, during, like, ABA therapy, we're doing kind of similar kind of exposure therapy, just, like,
Yeah.
denying access and trying to, like, redirect that, and just social stories about, like, I can't always be in control of things and this and that, so I
Well,
really
right, because
appreciate
your
you
brain
sharing that.
Yeah, I mean, it's because your brain, I mean, everybody's brain, I feel like, is like this. It's just like people who have OCD's brain is like this on steroids, where it's like we all want to be certain about everything. We want to be certain that we know where we're going. We want to be certain that we know somebody doesn't hate us. We want to be certain that we're going to have a good time when we go to this party. It's like but certainty is the villain of existence, because inevitably you can never be certain about anything. And with people with OCD, what they do is because, okay, I can never be certain, so I'm just going to spiral into control, and then I'm going to avoid every version of that interaction so where I don't have to deal with it. And then you just end up, which is what my brain always wants to be, is on the couch, like covered in a blanket, doom scrolling Twitter, smoking a vape. Like, and I have to do everything I can to not become that little gremlin. And so that's my journey.
I love that journey for
I love
Touch Me,
that.
though.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mental health is a prevalent theme in both Hypochondriac and Touch Me.
Yep.
Why do you personally feel it is important to talk about mental health in the context of a horror movie?
Oh, well, like I was referencing this earlier, but just like the ability horror has to like get into the kind of metaphorical aspect of issues while being super entertaining, I feel like is the way you speak to people. Like like you could like, so you like entertain but also have a message. And of course you're always gonna have the chodes that are just like, a message. And I'm just like, what do you watch? Like, what do you watch? Like, I don't know what you could watch that doesn't have, because like it's like there are themes in everything that you watch. And so it's like, but that's the thing, is like I love that aspect of horror, it's like, that the ability to explore kind of, I don't like, not controversial, but serious fucking shit in the realm, because it's a thing, right? Is it's just like, like it's not a like people want to be honest. OCD, the mental illness of OCD is one of the highest suicide rates amongst people with like amongst the like diaspora of neurodivergence. And so it's because like it feels like, I mean, like when you're in it, when you backslide and you're in that spiral, you want to die. And it's just like, and that's the thing, right? Is it's just like, that's very fucking serious. And so it's not hard to conflate that because it feels horrific. And so, like, take whatever version you want to talk about. You could talk about addiction. You could talk about living with that whatever neuroatypical thing you're living with. You can talk about relationship issues. You can talk about spousal abuse, childhood trauma, whatever you want can be explored. And I feel like a more complicated, or at least a way that like creates a conversation afterwards. And I think that to me is like the bread and butter of like my favorite horrors that I love watching. And then of course we get all the fun stuff as well. Like I'm not saying like horror needs to be this or horror needs to be that, but the stuff that I enjoy making will always be about queer people, will always be about mental illness, and will always be about the exploration of the journey through it to get to the other side, whether it ends up good or bad, because everybody has a story that ends up differently. And I'm always constantly changing, like how I feel about my mental illness of the day, right? So it's like that kind of dictates, or like, inspires what the next piece of art I'm gonna create or write about is gonna be.
Yeah, I think that's important. I think even you can relate on such a deep level because like the different scenes in the
Mhm.
movie with like the Q-tip, and especially when
Oh
like
yeah.
she like you don't know if she's hallucinating at different times or not when certain
Mm-hmm.
things are happening.
Yeah.
Um to me, that was very relatable, in a sense of like I went through a period of time where my
Mm-hmm.
son also has autism, was
Mm-hmm.
eloping, and I was not sleeping, and I would literally like just be out of my mind. And there were
Yeah.
times where I literally like I vividly felt like, oh, this is happening. And
Mm.
it was not happening, and it
Yeah.
was just because of, like, the anxiety, the PTSD, the
Yeah.
fear, and everything just but you just don't know in that moment, and it's so interesting how you can slip in and out of the reality of it.
Yeah, and also like the thing about stupid mental illness is that you could get through it once, and then you could be so in it again that you kind of forget every other thing that you thought of as before. It's like you learned this. Like, and that sucks with me. I'm such a, it's why regular like cognitive behavioral therapy doesn't work for me, because I've been in too much therapy. So I could logically tell you exactly what's going on with me, but it doesn't mean my brain believes it. And so that's why something that's a little more like, you know, it's not woo-woo because it's built in fact, but something that doesn't require reassurance for me, which is obviously like reassurance is the devil of OCD, is a lot more effective because I can't find an answer because there is no answer.
Yeah, I love that. Well, I love that answer.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
there we go back around to it. So you did talk about, you cited Japanese cinema of the 60s
Yeah.
and 70s as an
Yeah.
inspiration to this film. Are there any
Mhm.
specific films or directors that directly influenced you with Touch Me?
So many. So it's like, it's funny because like once you start watching Japanese cinema, you start realizing I was like, what a fraud Tarantino is now. But like, it's just funny because like you start watching these movies and you're like, oh, he pulled that from this, or he pulled that from that, or he pulled it. Like every artist steals, and I think that's such a fascinating thing. The one big one that kind of inspired it all was Mishima: Life in Four Chapters, which is a Paul Schrader film, not a horror movie, but stylistically of like how I wanted to create the film, because the film is like it's kind of bookended as if it were a story, right? Starts with a story, ends with the story, and we're kind of told everything in between. And when you're dealing with a movie and you're trying to create something on a budget, you got to get creative. But that's the best part of like kind of working within a budget, is like you don't have $80 million to do a giant VFX tentacle monster that like is like wrapping around things, and like it's like you just don't have that time. So what can you do? And I think the best thing about the 60s and 70s, they're called pink films. These stories about female revenge is like they were made by like the most prominent studios of Japan, but they were not snuff films, but they were like, they're pornographic, a lot of nudity, a lot of violence, a lot of female revenge. Like, yeah, they were awesome, but they were told theatrically. They were told on sets. They were told with like physical wounds, practical effects, like all of these like, stuff was practical. So regardless of the artifice, like it's fine because you're telling a story. And so when you're telling the story, it's so I found it an obvious kind of like forward momentum that you would just take that step further and then put it as if you were watching a piece of theater, like in the alien space. So Mishima: Life in Four Chapters does exactly that. There's a story that kind of is the overarching story of this author who ends up committing suicide via seppuku. He's a fascist, like very, very, very interesting story if you ever want to get into get him. But in between all of these things, Eiko Ishioka, the production designer, they told because the guy was a writer, he wrote short stories, were told his short stories on these very representational theatrical style sets. And I just found it so riveting. I was like, this is the way you do it. And also then you go back and you watch all the 60s and 70s stuff, and it's like, oh, that's what they did. They just built sets and they were telling stories. It's because I feel like, when you have a culture, that like exists for millennia, like you kind of have this kind of, you create your own kind of version of storytelling that's passed down. So of course it's going to seep its way into cinema. And so that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to build theatrical style sets that kind of were more representational of like what they were in, like the black cage room, the Eden room where like, the inevitable tentacle shenanigans sex happens, like, the like shoji screen room, which we call the crystal room, like all these like varying things that are very much an homage to cinema of the 60s and 70s, and I could go down the bucket list of like Jigoku, Blind Woman's Curse, Lady Snowblood, House, obviously House, Onibaba, Kuroneko, Ballad of Narayama. Like I could go down the list, and I just feel like that was such, wow, I'm long-winded here, but like that to me like felt cooler and like allowed me to take this physical swing when I could just like allow myself to not worry about it feeling real, but it actually feels more real when it feels tangible, which is why everything was practical in terms of the gore.
Yeah, I love that. And for those of you who aren't familiar, seppuku is the ritualistic,
Oh yeah, sorry. It's
yeah,
it's
the act of suicide that
Harry.
they,
Yeah.
yeah. Most notably, like a lot of people recognize it, like because of the 47 Ronin remake that Keanu Reeves did, that was like a
Oh,
part of
yeah.
it.
Mhm.
So I want to get to this part, but one of the defining moments, just spoiler alert. So if you've not seen the movie and you do not want to hear this part, we're not really going to spoil a lot with it, but just we're talking about this. So one of the defining moments of the movie is an honest conversation between Joey and Craig about their friendship.
Mm.
How
Mhm.
important was it to have that vulnerable moment of their friendship breaking apart?
Oh, I mean, it was like it was basically the whole point of the movie, right?
Yeah.
And that's the moment where, I mean, it's like it's that real moment, right? It's like you two are, I mean, like they're in the shitter, like they've got one plan, but before they all like kind of everything has to come forward, they have to talk about 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 themselves and recognizing the faults of their own faults, and realizing that like the journey that they have together is beautiful, but there's just no coming back from this, and that's okay. But like, it's also doesn't mean it's like not like devastating. And I always was writing the movie with the idea that like that was like essentially like it, right? Because friendship breakups are devastating. They hurt. I think they hurt sometimes even more so than like romantic relationships, because they're there longer, and also they could end on a dime. I think sometimes when you're friends for so long, you start doing this thing where you stop communicating, and then you let things just fester and build up until the only thing you could do is completely blow up and leave, and you're kind of left with the aftermath of like, this could have totally been avoided if we could just talked about it. But sometimes, when you've got a history spanning for that long, like, how do you even talk about it, especially as you start aging, right? So what you did was okay when you were 25, but then you get into your 30s, and like maybe you start getting into your early 40s, and all of a sudden your priorities change. So yeah, so like the whole fucking movie is about the friendship breakup, and they needed that moment in order to do the things that they're going to do next. I would argue that they couldn't do it
Mhm.
unless they had that conversation.
Yeah, I loved it because as somebody like we were talking about earlier, somebody it was a moment that definitely got caught me off guard in the film, and like I was bawling my eyes out in it because I'm like, "Oh my gosh," like but as somebody who's been there, like I had
Yeah.
and most notably like with especially with this podcast, like podcasts are
Mhm.
not exactly the most conducive to friendships. Um I say that as my best friend is like right down on the edge of the screen with us. But like I had a 10-year friendship of somebody that really went through life and my son's autism journey with me, somebody that I thought I was going to
Yeah.
be for with life. And it's one of those things where you're like, how did we get here? How did this become who we were? And you have all these things that are left unsaid. And sometimes we don't get those moments where we get to say what we want to say. So I feel like it's this very cathartic moment of for people where if you've had that, where you've experienced that, where you've had this profound loss of somebody in your
Mhm.
life, you can see that and kind of feel like, okay, I feel seen because this is exactly what I wanted this, but this isn't always exactly what we get
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's like, and that's to me, especially as like a gay man, and like who will always talk about kind of like queerness, is that like once like you can go back and you can trace the like history of queer horror cinema, and it's
Mhm.
like, but like I just think like movies have such a profound way of affecting people's daily lives. And I hate, because it's so funny, because you're like, whatever, I just get to play pretend for forever, and I'm like, it's true, like it's awesome. But like at the same time, like I'm just talking about me as a person who went through a lot of shit when he was a kid, and who found solace in art. And I feel like art has a profound had such a profound um effect on me, because it taught me empathy. It taught me. And so like when you can feel for someone going through something, you can then understand, or like the best art allows you to kind of reframe your life in a way that either leads to forgiveness or understanding or whatever it is. It like changes you in a way. And art's done that to me so many times that like, you know, I would love if it's just, it doesn't matter who, like, it's like people can hate this movie, people can love this movie. I've already had at least one person who says that like they understand what this means. And like as that's the end of the day, that's worth it, because that to me is the reason we create art. It's not to be, I don't know, like that's it, and it's fine too. But I don't create art because I listen. You know what the kind of movies I make. Like I'm not making commercial movies that are four quadrant. Like you know that's never gonna be me. Also, like cut to me like 10 years from now directing Marvel. Which I would totally do. I mean, who can? I mean, X-Men. Come on.
I mean, and
It's just like,
we'll be in the front row for that.
yeah,
So
come on.
regardless,
But like you know, like I make really fucking weird movies, but also I make movies for the freaks. So like if we all meet together and you can see each other, like isn't that the point? Isn't that the best part of
yeah.
cinema?
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that, and I think that that's incredible, and I'm just so lucky that we had this time with you to
Yeah.
talk about this film and everything with it. But to wrap up, what
Yeah.
is next for you?
Oh, what can I talk about? Well, we're releasing the movie, obviously, but I've got a couple scripts. One is like it's basically about a couple who wakes up in purgatory and are told that the only way to get to heaven is to go through couples therapy. But it's a horror movie, like kind of set in like a Dark Crystal style purgatory. Is the best way that I can describe it, with like a lot of murder and puppets. And the other one is I'll be very vague about it. It is like a horror movie that's set around a video game, and that's all I'll say.
Okay.
So I've
I
got
love
so
that.
yeah,
I absolutely love that, and I definitely would love to have you back on
Yep.
for any future films. You have a open invitation to our podcast any time you want to come on,
this
because we
this
adore
is
you.
lovely. I like being able to expand and talk about stuff. So thank you for letting me talk about like the granderness of it rather than it being like this, like, you know, I love the 8-minute conversations too, but like getting to know you guys and like hearing about your lives is like so fascinating, because at the end of the day, like art is supposed to make people come together, and you guys are cool people, and you're also people that have been through some profound shit, but also you're still here and you're doing really cool stuff as well, you know. And I'm
Thank you so
sorry that you live,
much.
and I'm sorry that you live in Ohio, not because it's Ohio but more because it's snowing. That's
Yeah.
what, like, you know, because I've
Yeah.
lived in the Midwest and I know that pain, but then soon it'll be really humid, so like,
Yeah.
you know, so enjoy that 2 months of spring.
Yeah, yeah,
Yep.
we get you know, we get a little bit of life that we get to live. So,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
highly encourage you guys to watch Touch Me. It is exclusively in New York City as of tomorrow, March 20th. And it has a limited theatrical run starting March 27th, and it will be on demand and digital starting April 7th. We'll have the details of that in the description down below, and we'll definitely be blasting that through our social media. You can also go watch Addison's first film, Hypochondriac, like we were saying, currently on VOD, and we will link where you can find that down below. But thank you so much for coming on. And
Yes.
I am Cass, and
I'm Kylee.
we are the Horrorcraft Podcast, and we're saying bye and stay spooky. Bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.